The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The Derbyshire Dales series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles, 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Hello folks, welcome back to the Derbyshire Dales for the last one in the run this week, and the last one in the northeastern corner of the Dales as well. After this, it's all south from here. So we followed the Derwent from Froggatt, where we were yesterday, and we've now hit a fairly sizable village, except this village is more than one village. It's actually four of them all glued together. This is Grindleford. Grindleford, Grindstone Ford. Ending the week here in the Derbyshire Dales, we have the parish of Grindleford, again lying within the Derwent Valley. Grindleford is a large area, the main reason being because in 1987, four former parishes merged together to form Grindleford as we know it today. They were Nether Padley, Upper Padley, Stoke and Eyam Woodlands. Grindleford is surrounded by some huge mountain-like hills. To the west is the huge 1,407 foot high Sir William Hill, which we drove across at the end of the Fuller episode a long time ago. Grindleford's pub is called the Sir William Hill in reference to it. To the southeast lies the gritstone escarpment of Froggatt Edge, and to the north is the beautiful Padley Gorge. Padley is perhaps the place most visitors to Grindleford are familiar with. There's a number of reasons for that. First of all, the gorge itself is a great place for walkers and families looking for a fun, adventurous day out. Grindleford is popular with walkers and climbers due to its proximity to a variety of landscapes, including open moorland and wooded river valleys, including, of course, Padley Gorge. Padley also has a couple of historic sites, including the remains of an old chapel and a now demolished hall. It also has Grindleford railway station on the Hope Valley line. That's the first thing you see when you emerge from the second longest railway tunnel in the UK, Totley. Elsewhere, Grindleford has a church, which is a little unusual given what you can find in it, and a sports ground, a school, an ancient bridge, an old toll house, and even an art gallery if you know where to go. So, for one last time in the northeastern Dales, let's go. We start our walk on the main road through Grindleford from north to south. It's the B6251 or main road. It's generally residential in the early going here. Grindleford has a wonderful setting, lying in a natural amphitheatre amid wooded hills, almost surrounded by National Trust land. On the eastern skyline are the crags of Froggatt Edge. To the west, the flanks of Sir William Hill shelter the village, while the Longshore Estate and Padley Gorge bound the northern end of the parish. With the River Derwent flowing north to south through the village, it's a wonderful walking country. It's an uncomplicated, if rambling settlement, but its boundaries take a little unravelling. You see, Grindleford is not just one village, it's four: Stoke, Eyam Woodlands, Upper Padley and Nether Padley. These were all merged together in 1987. We already know about Stoke. We covered that yesterday in Froggatt because it made more sense to. The Padleys are to the north, so what's in the middle? The answer is Eyam Woodlands, even though most people know it as Grindleford now. Grindleford was only ever marked on early maps as something else. The earliest documented evidence is in the 1248 Derbyshire Charter, where it's mentioned as Grundleford. In the assize rolls of 1359, it's recorded as Grindleford Bridge. It's this latter name which gives us a clue as to how it further developed as a settlement. Grindleford Bridge was the name given to the actual bridge that crosses the Derwent here. Eyam Woodlands was centred around Grindleford Bridge 150 years ago. To the south lay Stoke, and between the two it was just a road with a tannery on the right of it before you hit a turning into the main village. It's a bit different now. Most of Main Road is built up these days with a lot of houses on the left hand side. The right though is still open and wild. Mount Pleasant Garage provides our first landmark of any real note here, just before we reach the centre of civilization. This used to be the site of a pub many decades ago. It was called the Bell Inn, Beer House and Hostelry, and some years later it became Kenyon's filling station, selling petrol from some of Derbyshire's first multi-storage tanks. During the 1920s and 1930s, the Kenyon family operated motorbuses, which they had introduced to the Hope Valley after the loss of their horses. They'd all been acquired by the military to be used on the French battlegrounds during World War I. Kenyons would eventually close their pumps. That enabled the owners of Mount Pleasant Garage to be freed from a long-honoured agreement, and shortly afterwards they installed their own pumps here. There's no petrol here today though. So walking into Grindleford here, I'm surrounded by bunting, loads of bunting hung from the street lights and attached to houses. Look at this, loads of it. This is the time of year though that Derbyshire does this kind of stuff, you know, well dressing and stuff like that. I came through one of the villages earlier, I can't remember which one it was, which had its well dressed. So yeah, so we might see one here in Grindleford. Now we're in the oldest part of Grindleford, or Eyam Woodlands if you will. This little cluster of terraces and cottages surround a school and chapel on the B6001 that leads north to Hathersage. The village only has the one school, Grindleford Primary, which was rated good in its 2018 Ofsted report. This school has been here for over a century. It was opened in 1876, originally as Eyam Woodlands, Stoke and Nether Padley School, before later changing its name. In the early 2000s, local parents helped renovate the school, including adding its second floor, but the main body of the building has been in constant use since it first opened. The school is an active part of the Grindleford community and utilises the local environment for learning. You can hardly blame them for doing that, given where it all sits. Most of the present-day buildings in Grindleford originate from the days when the railways were being built across the country. Grindleford saw a newfound prosperity and needed better housing and improved facilities as a result. The village pub was quickly enlarged, and that's next. Not far from the school is the Sir William Hotel. Like the school, this has had some former names. It was called the Commercial, and before that it was called the Old Red Lion. The name now is a reference to the massive hill that we drove across the top of at the end of the Flunder episode. Leading steeply up from the hotel, the road over the hill goes to Bretton. The old road was at one time the Buxton to Grindleford Turnpike. It reaches a height of over 1,400 feet after leaving Buxton before descending 500 feet to Grindleford in little over half a mile. The name William Hill has absolutely nothing to do with gambling. So William Hill is said to date back to at least 1692, and there are several theories as to the naming of it. The hill bit is obvious, but the William in question is not. It seems there are three main candidates though: William Saville, William Cavendish and William Bagshaw. Bagshaw, who's portrayed on the hotel's signboard, was not born until 1771, after the turnpike road had been established. That actually makes him the least likely of the three. Saville was, in 1692, the lord of the manor of Eyam, but at the same time, Cavendish owned Stoke Hall. The chances are it's named for Cavendish, because money and power did a lot of talking. Okay, coming past the school and the Sir William, we find ourselves in the centre of civilization here. Now, there's a few things to talk about in the centre of civilization. One of them is the War Memorial, which you can see just there. We'll catch that in a second. Next, though, overlooking the pub, is this big Methodist chapel. So another thing that was quickly built after the railways came along was a large Methodist chapel. Standing opposite the hotel, this was opened in 1905. Methodism may have first arrived in Grindleford as early as 1766. We can maybe deduce that from the records of John Wesley himself. In his journal for the period the 27th of May 1765 to the 18th of May 1768, he records that on the 27th of March 1766 he preached in the morning at a little village near Eyam. That little village was reputedly Grindleford Bridge, and he may have been travelling here from Sheffield at the time. Wesley's visit may have been a consequence of an abortive attempt to introduce Methodism to Eyam in 1765. Thereafter, various directories record a Methodist chapel in Grindleford Bridge, built in 1830. Nothing remains now of that building, as it was replaced by the present chapel. The original village centre had been focused around this small green on the Hathersage Road, where the War Memorial stands now. Although still relatively small during wartime, this community lost many of its finest young men in the two world wars. 16 perished in the carnage of the Great War and 12 in the Second, including 3 sets of brothers in the latter. This granite memorial is unusual in that it shows not only the names and ages of the fallen, but also gives the actual date on which they lost their lives. Sports now, and Grindleford has a really good set of facilities located on the banks of the Derwent. This is known as Bridge Playing Field, and the main building here is Bishop Pavilion. Grindleford Football Club play here. The club currently competes in the Hope Valley Amateur League, and they have a junior section in the Derwent Valley League. Grindleford Cricket Club are also based at Bishop Pavilion and Bridge Playing Field. The club have 3 senior teams, a first 11 Saturday team, a Sunday 11 friendly team, and a midweek 11 side. The impressive facilities of Bishop Pavilion serve as the main community and sports space in the village. There are other clubs and societies here too though, and lots of annual events. The Grindleford Gallop, for example, is a challenge event held in March. There's a village carnival held in June and a horticultural show in August. They are just some of the highlights of village life here. Okay, so once you've exited the playing field and the pavilion, you then see the main street again, right there. Now, if you were to head that way, towards where we started, you'd be missing half of Grindleford out, because there's another section to it, over a big bridge. But this hasn't been around for all that long. The section over the bridge is kind of newish. It was built when the railways came along. Let's check it out. Now, Grindleford is a village divided, spliced in two by the deep dark waters of the River Derwent, which meanders south in the bottom of the valley. Although split into 2 distinct sections by the river, getting over the Derwent here is easy thanks to this bridge. The present bridge was built in around 1758 and later widened. Underneath the arches, the joints where the ashlar blocks were joined when the bridge was widened can still be seen. By the 18th century, turnpike roads were established and Grindleford was at the meeting point of 3 of them. That brings us to the next landmark, over the river. On the other side of Grindleford Bridge there's a quaint little property known as Toll Bar Cottage, and yes, this would have done exactly what it sounds like. This would have collected tolls from users of this road because it was a turnpike from 1759 onwards. It transported travellers from Newhaven through Grindleford and onto High Road and Ringinglow. The toll collector would have benefited from a 2-storey semicircular bay window which enabled him to look up and down the road to check for approaching customers. The house fell into disrepair when the turnpike closed in 1884, but it was renovated in the 1930s, and today I reckon this would make a fabulous little holiday home, if the owners wanted it to. On the eastern side of the river are houses, villas and country retreats which were mainly constructed following the arrival of the Hope Valley Railway line at the end of the Victorian era. When Grindleford was Eyam Woodlands, to the east of the Derwent was a small hamlet called Nether Padley, consisting of a clutch of farm buildings mainly. They still exist, although now Nether Padley is a lot bigger. Most of it is hidden in the trees of a sylvan slope beneath the gritstone escarpments to the north. Yeah, if it wasn't for modern maps, you'd struggle to see most of these houses because, to be honest with you, most of them are hidden from view. If you drive through Grindleford and up there towards Padley, you think you're in the middle of nowhere. I've done it a few times. All the houses are off to the right-hand side and they're all behind trees and shrubs and foliage and all sorts of things, basically. So we're not going to see much if we carry on up there. So what we'll do is we'll turn around at this point. But there is one thing on this side of the bridge that we still haven't seen, and that is the church. Now this is one of the unusual churches in Derbyshire, one of the most unusual, should we say. Nether Padley is also where you'll find Grindleford's church dedicated to St Helen. Prior to the coming of the railways, when Nether Padley was mainly undeveloped, there was no church here. But with the expansion of Grindleford, the building of a church was inevitable. This came along in 1909, just a few years after a railway tunnel was completed further up the valley. More on that later. The land this sits on was donated by the Maynard family. Designed by Richard Sutton and Frederick Gregory, this was intended to be a large Gothic revival structure. However, only the chancel, south chapel and vestries were completed before World War I. A temporary nave was also built, and the church was given its dedication in 1910. A porch, kitchen and restroom were only added to the church in 1983. More recently, the church has gained another vital community use. As well as religious services, it's been adapted to serve as a community space for events, exhibitions and meetings. It's almost like a village hall, you could say. The church vestry also houses the Grindleford Community Shop. It was set up to provide a local shop for the village, and it's immensely successful. It sells artisan bread from Welbeck Bakery, as well as a range of other local products. Tea, coffee and locally baked cakes are also available here. This June, just gone, marked the 10th anniversary of establishing the shop in the church. It's proved a popular venture for both people in the village and passing walkers. At present, the shop is working with the church on a joint project which will see solar panels and batteries installed when the church is re-roofed. We're almost all the way around this walk, but we have one final thing to see before we reconvene with the car. If you cross back over the river, you'll see this building. This is the Derwent Gallery. It's a contemporary art gallery specialising in landscape paintings of the Peak District. It was established between 1995 and 1997. It's known for showcasing both traditional and modern styles of art featuring the region's varied landscapes. The gallery also offers bespoke picture framing services too. Nice stuff. And from here it's a simple case of just walking straight back up the main street to find the car, and that is the walk around Grindleford. However, we haven't quite finished with this one just yet, because we may have covered Grindleford, but we still need to cover some bits to the north of it. You remember earlier we mentioned there were 4 villages that form Grindleford these days. We've talked a bit about Eyam Woodlands, we've talked about Nether Padley, we dealt with Stoke yesterday, so what about Upper Padley? Let's go check that out. Heading north away from the main village, and after crossing the Derwent Bridge, we pass the Maynard Arms. Keep your eyes on the right of the screen and you'll see it. It dates back to at least 1857, with its name deriving from the Maynard family, who were lords of the manor in Padley. The current building was constructed in 1908, coinciding with the arrival of the railway to the area. It served as a hotel mainly, but also as a place for touring cricket teams. In fact, the Maynard gained fame for hosting internationally renowned sides, including an Australian team led by Don Bradman in 1938. It also played host to a West Indies team featuring Sonny Ramadhin and Alf Valentine in the 1950s. Today, the Maynard remains a 19-bedroom hotel and a wedding venue. So now we're in Upper Padley, the northernmost part of Grindleford. This has a lot of things for such a small little hamlet, including Grindleford railway station. The railway is a rare form of transport in the Peak District, with Grindleford being one of only a handful of villages afforded the luxury of an operating station. The station is a stop on the Hope Valley line between Manchester Piccadilly and Sheffield. It was opened in 1894 on what was originally the Midland Railway's Dore and Chinley line. The line opened up the previously isolated valley to day trippers to Padley Gorge and commuters from Sheffield, but it also provided a means of transport for stone from the local quarries. The original station buildings are still standing and now house a well-known cafe. Otherwise, the station is unstaffed. Trains to Sheffield take around 15 minutes from here. Grindleford Station Café, by the way, is a legendary establishment that's been run by the same family for 45 years. It sells huge portions of good, honest, quality food. Its chip butties and pints of tea, yes, you heard that right, are rightly famous across the Peak District and beyond. It's all worth a stop, but there's more to Padley than this. When you approach Grindleford Station on a train from Sheffield, it's the first thing you see after you emerge into the daylight from the second longest railway tunnel in the UK. Completed in 1893, Totley Tunnel is 3 miles and 950 yards long, a length that's only been beaten by the Severn Tunnel. The Channel Tunnel is longer still, but that's classed as international. The tunnel's construction brought the railway line to the Derwent and Hope Valleys and encouraged the building of many houses in the area as homes for Sheffield commuters. Basically, without the tunnel there would be no railway, and with no railway there would be no Grindleford. Well, not as we know it today anyway. Totley Tunnel runs under the expansive Totley Moor. It was constructed by the Midland Railway and the engineers were Parry and Story of Nottingham. Work began in 1888 with the construction of 3 brick surveying towers along the tunnel's proposed line, followed by vertical shafts to the level of the rails. The Duke of Rutland had decreed that no more than 1 ventilation shaft should be sunk through his land and that work should cease from August to October during the grouse shooting season. The tunnel was dug from both ends simultaneously, the headings finally meeting in 1892. It was hot and humid work, so for a time at the Padley end, a turbine was installed to drive a huge fan. Because of the damp conditions, the workforce suffered outbreaks of typhoid, diphtheria, smallpox and scarlet fever. During construction, a natural cavern several hundred square feet in area was discovered, which was incorporated into the tunnel. The entrance to the cavern can be seen halfway through it if you're on a train. Passenger services through the tunnel commenced in 1894. Ever since, it's been frequently used by both passenger and freight trains. Above ground, there are a number of ventilation shafts still visible on Totley Moor. Several shafts are visible indoor too, from Strawberry Lee Road. So you recall on Tuesday I said that this part of the Dales does get very busy in the summertime, and even though Baslow wasn't particularly busy when I was there earlier today, Grindleford really is. There's a lot of people around the station cafe and around the station in general. I'm expecting to see quite a few people down here as well. Let's head on through Upper Padley, because at the end of this track there's even more. Now, the rest of Upper Padley is something of a hidden delight. Beyond the station, the line through it runs into a dead end, but people love coming up here. There are several reasons to. One reason is Padley Chapel, a Grade 1 listed building that stands not far from the railway line. Another is Padley Hall. These 2 buildings have a lot to tell us. The majority of Padley Hall is now in ruins. Sometimes called Padley Manor, it was a large double courtyard house. Etched with wealth, romance, devotion, faith and treachery, the story of the hall begins in around 1415 when Robert Eyre came home from Agincourt to marry his sweetheart Joan Padley. Robert initiated the building of a new manor at Padley, and their subsequent marriage produced 14 offspring. Only 1 female child reached adulthood though, Anne Eyre. Anne would marry an equally financially desirable suitor, Sir Thomas Fitzherbert, who was to inherit the Norbury estate near Ashbourne. They were Catholics and made Padley Hall their home, continuing in the Catholic faith, despite Elizabeth I at the time forbidding the following or preaching of Catholicism. Priests were ordained abroad as it was illegal in this country back then. They were treated as criminals guilty of high treason and punishable by death, as was anyone found harbouring them. Therefore, Sir Thomas Fitzherbert was regarded with suspicion and was eventually arrested in 1571. He wasn't the only one. It was here in 1588 where 2 Catholic priests named Nicholas Garlick and Robert Ludlam were discovered in hiding. 2 weeks later, they were hanged, drawn and quartered in Derby. They became known as the Padley Martyrs. Part of the hall, believed to be the central gatehouse range, survives. In 1933 it was converted to a Roman Catholic chapel in honour of the martyrs. This was after the chapel had been a site of pilgrimage for several years. Annual pilgrimages were set up by a priest from Sheffield, organised by the Guild of Our Lady of Ransom. Now here's another reason to come to Padley, Brunts Barn. This is named after the MBE Harry Brunt, the former Deputy Peak District National Park Officer from 1951 until his death in 1980. His role was wide-ranging and included the development of ranger and warden services. A keen conservationist, he was also involved in developing access agreements. Part of his work also saw him restore former railway lines into walking and cycling routes, beginning with the Tissington Trail. He also created the National Park's information centres. Widely respected throughout the organisation, Harry's name lives on thanks to Brunts Barn, which is a National Park volunteers centre. This barn was originally part of a farm complex and was redeveloped in the 18th century. It later became the National Park's Ranger Briefing Centre and Volunteers Centre. Well worth a look at Brunts Barn, and so is Padley Chapel and the ruins of the hall as well. Now, despite the fact there's plenty of trees around here, as you can see there are loads of them, there's none here at the chapel or the barn, so it's bright sunlight and not very much shade at the moment for me. That's all about to change though, because we're going to walk our way back towards the station now, and when we reach the station we're going to take a left turn into those trees over there. We're heading for Padley Gorge. Here's a bit about Padley Gorge. It's a deep but narrow valley between Grindleford and the A6187. It's extensively wooded with a stream running through it called Burbage Brook. The stream used to form the boundary between Derbyshire and Yorkshire, but the boundary now follows the A6187 instead, the former route of the A625. Now, we are definitely in the UK here, but believe it or not, this is actually classed as a rainforest. It's one of the furthest inland examples of a temperate rainforest in the country. The gorge begins near Grindleford station at a stile and continues up the valley towards Hathersage Road and Burbage. It finishes at the edge of the woodland. Padley Gorge forms the backbone of several walks in the area, and the railway station approach road forms a convenient car park for walkers. A short distance from the upper section of the gorge is the Foxsnow, a pub and hotel on the road to Sheffield. Longshore Estate is equally close, and its lands include the gorge. The valley is part of the Yarncliffe Wood, a site of special scientific interest first designated in 1972. It has a range of rare wildlife, flora and fauna. It includes 3 species of Umbilicaria lichen, said to be very rare in the Midlands, and it's a breeding site for pied flycatcher, wood warbler and hawfinch. Padley Gorge is a popular tourist spot and as of May 2020 has a 5-star rating on TripAdvisor. You can't argue with that, can you? Driving away from Grindleford now, the last thing to see within the parish boundary is a little-known building on the edge of Padley Gorge. It's called the Granby Discovery Barn. Originally a gatehouse for Padley Hall, it was later used as a barn and cow shelter, but now it has several displays telling you the history of the area. I can't cover it all, of course, so it's worth popping in here to learn a bit more about Grindleford and Padley, as well as the local wildlife you can find in the gorge. And so, right on the parish boundary and the district boundary too with Sheffield is the Foxsnow. This popular pub marks our exit from the Dales and the completion of the northeastern corner. Foxsnow is theoretically in Yorkshire, not Derbyshire, but I will include this little nugget to finish with about it. The Foxsnow was originally called the Traveller's Rest, but was later renamed after the Fox family of Callow near Hathersage. The present inn was built in 1773 and was extended in the 1840s by the Duke of Rutland's agent. For many years, a large room here was known as the Duke's Room. That's because occasionally the Duke of Rutland himself would sleep overnight with his young sons. On one wall there used to be the stuffed head of a bull killed in 1886 and presented to the Duke. Foxsnow is also reputed to be Whitecross in the book Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. It's where Jane got down from the coach whilst fleeing to the fictional Morton, based on Hathersage. That's been a fascinating week, all things considered. I'll be leaving the Dales alone for a long time now, but I will be back next year. There's still loads more to cover in these lovely hills. just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.